Hello, I am doing a data overview today for Lincoln County High School. Today is November 17th, 2022, and this is for all stakeholders of Lincoln County High School 9th through 12th grade, including teachers, administration, the leadership team, and the data team. My name is Michelle Wilson, and I teach here at Lincoln County High School, the only high school in Lincoln County, which has a population of a little less than 8,000 residents. It's a very rural area, with our district having only one elementary, one middle, and one high school. The school district is the largest employer in the county. Lincoln County High School has approximately 380 students in 9th through 12th grade. The purpose of this data overview presentation is to share data analysis results in an effort to create awareness of the student demographics and student achievement. We also want to see what our strengths and weaknesses are here at Lincoln County High School, and based on what the data shows, we'll want to brainstorm some ideas on how we might be able to improve. The data sources I used are CCRPI for enrollment, demographics, attendance, graduation rate, and certified personnel. For the algebra data, I used EOC for Lincoln County High School. And it was predominantly 9th grade students, but we did have a few 10th graders taking it. This is the teacher data for Lincoln County District. We have a total of 34 teachers in the district. 15% are male, 19% are female, so about half and half. We have the vast majority of our teachers have a degree of 5 years or more. And years of experience, the majority of our teachers also have more than 10 years of teaching experience. Student population for the state of Georgia is consistent over the most recent 3-year period. There are a variety of races represented, with the top 2 races being black and white. These 2 races are pretty much even across the board, even when there is slight fluctuation from year to year. The third largest ethnic group is Hispanics, and this group has remained steady with little change also. You can see the top 3, black is in green, which is pretty consistent across, and then the orange is white across, a darker orange, and then here, and then Hispanics purple. The student population for Lincoln County pretty much mirrors the state, with the top 2 ethnic groups being white and black. Our third largest ethnic group, however, is multiracial. In Lincoln County, our student percentage for white students is 58% in 18-19. It moves to 2% in 1920 and fluctuates 4 percentage points to 60 in 2021. The student percentage for black students is 37% in 18-19, remaining the exact same for the 1920 year, and drops only 1 percentage point to 36 in 2021. The multiracial students make up about 3% of our district, and Hispanics are right at 1% or less. These percentages can be traced back historically and have pretty much remained consistent for years. Not having other ethnic groups represented can be due to Lincoln County being a small rural area with little to no industry. We do not have factories or farms. The county's largest employer, like I said earlier, is the school district. And the second industry or employer would be lumber. The attendance shown here is the LCHS only, but it does mirror the data for the state also. You can see that 2017 and 18 and 19 were pretty consistent from year to year. 2019 percentages were a little bit better, but I would argue the reason for this is that the latter part of the year there were no absences because students were out with COVID and they were being homebound. So you can see right here they're not as, the percentage is higher with 5 or fewer, but I'm sure that's why it was. I threw in a line here for 2021, honestly, just to see how drastic the numbers would be. You can see this blue line going through. And as you can see, it almost looks inverted compared to the previous years. As we all know, these numbers are the result of students being out with COVID and the lack of student attendance counting against them due to the pandemic. So far this year, though, we are seeing numbers return back to the norm as we return to an educational environment with fewer disruptions to student learning. Here we are looking at the graduation rate for the state versus LCHS. This spans over a 3-year period, and LCHS has had higher percentages of graduates consistently, although the difference only ranges from 3 to 11% throughout this 3-year period. One reason our numbers may supersede the state is we're a small community. This is very advantageous when it comes to students not being present or not performing in class. Most everyone knows everyone, and if we don't know the mom or dad, we more than likely know grandma or grandpa, so it's easy to reach out and touch those students. Now we're going to dig in and take a look at our EOC performance, specifically with our Algebra 1 results. We're going to take a look at 3 years, but I've broken them down year by year just so we can compare our high school results with those of the state more clearly. Looking at this graph, our beginning learners and developing learners are scoring less than proficiency on the exam. These represent the first 2 columns of the data. You can see the first 2 here and here, which make up the bulk of the students or percentages. The state's total for these 2 is 64.9% compared to the school at 59.5%. The school is slightly less, but not by far. The last 2 columns here are, they represent proficient and distinguished learners. These students have passed their EOC. You can see these percentages are pretty much consistent with the state, with the school outperforming the state just by a little over 5%. For the 2017-18 school year, I have used a stacked column chart to represent the similarities, and I like the side-by-side comparison of this. You can literally just, cross the line, going across the axis, and seeing these percentages are almost the same, with the exception that the school down here does not have quite as many students performing in the beginning learners bracket, but those students have moved to the developing learners right here. For our last comparison, I've used a bar chart where you can easily see the similarities and differences between the state and the school. With that said, for this particular year, the district's lower level scores were higher than the state's. So we actually underperformed the state in these lower levels, beginning and developer. For whatever reason, the state outperformed the school level. Even though there was a change compared to the state, over the 3-year time frame, the first 2 years we were at a 39.6% and 40.5% proficiency, and dropped down to 30.4% this year. I have researched to know that math standards change often, so we'll need to look and see if there could be a correlation between this. I have also found that math in general is underperforming across the state as well as the nation. Students are getting away with having to do math on a daily basis like we used to have to do. These days they have smartphones at their fingertips and scientific calculators who can spit out a number and a formula for them in just a few clicks. I wanted to break the data down a little bit further and see if we could find any data that may enlighten or intrigue us to think outside the box for solutions. I took 1 year in particular, which was 2018-19, to see what our gender numbers looked like for those taking the test. Our males and females are pretty much on the same level, differing only by 4 or 5% at the most. On the other hand, when I narrowed the data among ethnic groups, there was a vast difference. Twice as many white students took the exam than black students. Out of the 79 students that took the exam, 51 were white, 22 were black. As you can see, the black students scored 91% below proficiency compared to the white students at 59%. Only 9% of the black students passed the exam, scoring only 9% of proficiency and having no distinguished learners. White students passing with a proficiency or higher score was a little over 41%. Having this much of a disparity between ethnic groups is definitely a weakness and needs to be looked into further. It could be that more of the black students are economically disadvantaged compared to the white students, but the data for economically disadvantaged students was not broken down further into ethnic groups. It was either broken down into gender or broken down into ethnic groups, but not by both. To review what we've covered, I'd like to point out some of our strengths and our weaknesses in regards to how the district and school holds up to the state. We average over a 3-year period only 50% of our student population missing 5 school days or less. And our graduation rate is high and exceeds the state with all 3 years shown. The percentage is on to increase even more this year. Our teaching staff not only has advanced degrees, they have pushed through and stayed in this profession when a lot of teachers did not. We have 62% of our staff that have master's degrees or higher, and more than 56% having been teaching for more than 10 years. In regards to our weaknesses, comparing the district with the state, we have a lot of room to improve in our algebra EOC. Although our numbers are consistent with the state, the percentages below proficiency need to drastically improve, and we need to all come together and ask ourselves just how we can do just that. One thing I'd like for us to do, or begin looking at our student learning problem, is to go through an exercise called why. With this exercise, we avoid blaming students for their performance on the EOC and focus on the causes that are within our reach and the students. Using inferences, we would conclude that the majority of our students are not performing at the proficient and distinguished learning levels. So how might we change this trend and do better? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you all to come up with an action plan to address these results.